one of the biggest stories coming out of the Supreme Court this year is a case that will definitively decide whether or not the federal government will legalize gay marriage. No matter where your personal opinion lies, there's no question this is a huge history-making decision. Now, before anyone gets their hackles up, I'm not here to convince you either way. I'm only going to give you the top arguments, most of which you can find on procon.org, and talk you through some of the evidence that I've found that backs up some of these arguments and completely disproves others. My only intention is to leave you with enough information for you to make an informed decision that does not rely on the ick factor. The first argument that anyone comes across when looking up this information is that this argument's already been decided by the public. It's been in the public mind for so long, and everybody already knows that it's going to just go ahead and be legal. Why won't the courts just come on and take care of it? That's not true. In fact, quite a few polls taken throughout the year show that it's nowhere near as cut and dry as you would expect. In fact, most polls from many different sources put the approval rate of gay marriage between 51% and 61%. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that's a far cry from an overwhelming majority that I was led to believe it was going to be. It's far from a open and shut case. One question that clearly divides the supporters from the opponents, though, is whether or not marriage is a civil right protected by the Constitution or a privilege. Now, opponents would remind you that there's no clause in the Constitution that specifically gives anyone the right to marry, including heterosexual couples. This is true. I agree. However, the Supreme Court has long upheld the idea of what's called preamble rights. These are rights that can be interpreted from the other rights expressly given within the Constitution. Basically, just because it's not in black and white where you can read it, does not mean that the lawmakers of our country won't protect it as a constitutional right. Now, another argument is that countries all over the world have already legalized gay marriage, and we're just behind the times and trying desperately to catch up. Now, it's true that some countries have decided to make gay marriage legal, but it's far from the overwhelming majority, again, that we were led to believe. These red spots, those are the ones that are already legal. The dark spots have regional areas where legalization is there. And then these kind of teal spots here, these are places where there's smaller measures of protection. Yeah, there's quite a few red countries, but the map is far from covered. And in fact, if you pay attention, the only spot in the entire continent of Africa is one. One has weighed in. Now, another argument is that gay marriage is against religious text and would be directly contrary to those beliefs. This, however, is a question that even the zealots can't quite agree on. Some religious groups say that love, no matter what its form, is a gift from God and should be cherished and respected. Others believe that this quote-unquote lifestyle is a direct affront to God. A third and completely different argument is that Marriage is a legal entity and therefore secular institution and should not be bound by religious dogma. If a religious person decides to get married, they can do so at a church and have the full blessing of the church to do so. But no one says that a marriage has to be performed in front of a priest. In fact, you could go to Vegas 7 nights a week and have an Elvis impersonator preside over your wedding. Another question is whether or not gay marriage will change or even disrupt the idea of traditional marriage in America. But traditional is such a fluid word. Traditions change as the needs of people change. I remember when I was a kid, the tradition for my family was to meet every Christmas Eve, and anyone who didn't show up was all but shunned the next year. Since then, the family's grown so much, and some people have moved out of state, and the tradition that once was is now gone and replaced with a series of nights that anyone who can shows up. Now, there are, of course, a few laughable arguments in the mix. The slippery slope argument, for example, if we allow gay people to get married, then soon a man will want to marry his underage daughter and the family pet. I'm sorry, but I seriously doubt this is going to happen. First of all, a minor cannot enter into a marriage contract, and neither can Fido. Sorry. Another is that people should not have to have their tax dollars spent on something they just don't agree with. That's all well and good in a theory, but what happens when my friend goes down to City Hall and tells someone she doesn't want to have her tax dollars go to someone who's sitting on the couch and won't get up and get a job instead of living on welfare? She clearly doesn't agree with her money being spent that way. Are we going to honor that as well? Now that you have all of these arguments from both sides, it's up to you to decide what you're comfortable with. I just hope that I've given you enough for you to find a reason other than that often quoted, "That's just icky."